Hello World Doll Day friends, this is Michael Canadas. Today we are off-site at a special exhibit at the Barrie Art Museum with guest curator and Barbie's best friend, Bradley Justice Yarbrough.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Well,
it's great to be here.
I am so excited. We're going to let you out of the box. And I think anytime the most famous doll in the world gets a little extra publicity, it's pretty exciting.
I totally agree.
And this poster is out in
like 3-story tall outside.
Yes.
It's pretty cool. I love it.
So today you're going to give us a behind the scenes tour of your curated exhibit.
Thank you.
Barbie Out of the Box.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I can't wait to show you everything that we have in store.
All right, so shall we go in and have a look?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right this way. So now, World Day doll people, I'd like to invite you to my favorite part of the exhibit. Let's go play in Barbie's dream house.
All right.
So Michael, this is probably one of my favorite dolls in the exhibit. This is the original 1959 Barbie doll, and she is a very special doll. She is a dressed box doll that would have been sold to a retailer to be used as a display. She has the original, what we call a pink silhouette box, which were only sent to retailers. And this is a very unusual box in that it's wider to accommodate the original bride costume that she's wearing. Now, because it was a special display, there's a few little details and variations that are a little different than the original production version, and that you can see that the flowers are a little more pink and there's a little extra oomph to it. So I think it's a very lovely example of the costume. And she's also standing with 3 other costumes that are extremely rare from the 1959 first year of Barbie: Roman Holiday, Gay Parisienne, and Easter Parade. And we have lots of fabulous little details, including the rare compact and all of the little accessories like the pearl drop necklace. So this is sort of like a dream doll and dream wardrobe.
Well, and I'm so envious that there's a little compact there, and we'll circle it because it's so small that you might even miss that it's there.
And that is like the one detail that I think most every collector is looking for.
Yes.
I think they all got
she
sucked up in the vacuum cleaner.
she is a number one. And so this box, this was only sold to retailers?
Right. In the very beginning, they sold store display sets, and they were a special display that you could put dolls in. So when you ordered that, it came with the structure to put the dolls in, and they sent you a selection of dolls that were already dressed in these costumes, and they came in these special boxes. So.
And I think this is very clever, Bradley, how you set this up, that we don't always in photography or even in exhibits have an opportunity to see the backs of costumes.
Well, our curator here at the Barrie Art Museum, Dr. Sarah Woodbury, was very instrumental in making sure all of these details and all of this concept was brought. And she had a whole team that not only thought heavily about the lighting, the structure, but also building these incredible sets that we're walking through, these sort of replicas of the 1979 Dream House and the 2023 Dream House. It's kind of fun to kind of be in that sort of scale structure.
Oh, and this is something, to see the box mark Japan.
Yes.
Isn't that neat?
That's where the original Barbies were
made,
produced. Mm-hmm. And I just recently visited Japan and met with the company that handled the original production of Barbie and got to see their archives. So I'm looking forward to sharing some of that research in the future.
Well, she is a beauty, and I'm just in awe of her shimmering bridal gown. I want that.
Well, I always say, for me, sometimes the original concept is always the purest, and to me, this is just such the quintessential original sort of vision of Barbie.
Oh, absolutely. So shall we go look at this? I'm intrigued. You have all of are these original? What's happening here?
We have, we're showing some of the early commercials, and we're also showing some features that were done on Barbie. And this particular one is, I always say, is the reason why I collect Barbie. In 1982, a syndicated television show called PM Magazine ran a segment on Sybil DeWine, who had just written the Collector's Encyclopedia of Barbie. It was sort of like what collectors considered the Bible. It was from 59 to 76, documenting all of the dolls that had been produced by Mattel. And they did a news feature on Sybil. I watched that when I was 12 years old, and I decided right then, I'm going to collect Barbie. So that's how I...
And Barbie wasn't that old then.
Well, we won't talk about that. Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that...
time goes by fast.
Very fast. I've celebrated a lot of anniversaries with Barbie, and it's kind of scary when some of the anniversaries we're celebrating, I actually remember when the doll came out as an adult, so it's getting a little bit...
Well, this is nice that you've put this all together.
Well, it's a fun reminder of there were some pioneers in the world that sort of paved the way and made it a lot easier for collectors today.
And just doing the math, I can tell from the video that she did not grow up playing with Barbie.
No, she didn't. And that's the thing I like about some of the original collectors and pioneers of Barbie. They were not collecting out of nostalgia. They were collecting out of fascination. And I love that whole sort of concept of seeing something and recognizing it as being very important and a great sort of object that needs to be studied, and then kind of following it as it continues to happen, because you know, she definitely did not grow up playing Barbie. So the rest of us can claim nostalgia, but she was completely fascinated.
Well, that's wonderful. So I love how you've put together this
once again,
a storyboard or a wall of fame.
The team here at the Barrie Art Museum came up with this concept, and it's, to me, I love it. It's like they're floating, and to me, it kind of gives you an opportunity to look at them as artwork and present them as a piece of artwork hanging on the wall. So.
And then I think we've got some little German girl here, a little Fräulein.
That is the Lilli doll, the Bild Lilli. She is based on a cartoon character that was done for the Bild newspaper, which is very much like a tabloid, like our National Enquirer. And she originated as a one-panel comic, and she was using her attributes to get what she wanted. She was a bit of a gold digger. She had a great figure, and she didn't mind using it to get what she wanted. My favorite one, we don't have that one on display. My favorite is she's talking to her coworker. She's in a very tight skirt, has like black smudgy handprints on her bottom, and she's telling her coworker, "My car broke down on the Autobahn, but a very nice young man gave me a hand." So,
oh, that's Bild Lilli.
so this is a fabulous Bild Lilli that's on loan. She is a gorgeous, gorgeous doll in an original red taffeta dress. They started in 1955 and continued into the early 60s. And this is the doll that Ruth Handler discovered in Lucerne, Switzerland, when they were touring Europe in 1956 or 57. And she said this would be the wonderful basis of Barbie. She brought this doll back and entrusted it to Jack Ryan, who was sort of like their creator, inventor, sort of genius extraordinaire. And he took the doll to Japan to figure out how to soften her and turn her into the Barbie that we came to know. And so just above her is the Barbie that we came to know as sort of like the original concept, the ponytail, the red lip, and the black and white striped swimsuit. So this is what they were going for. And this is sort of, this is a number 4, and this is pretty much the doll that they kind of accepted as quote unquote the original. Now, there were a lot of transitions in the doll that happened early in 1959. There's variations that happened very quickly. But this is the version that was sort of produced en masse that most people had when they had a Barbie, and everyone kind of feels like this is the original.
Well,
concept.
isn't it, didn't Ruth Handler consider this
Yes.
the project completed to her satisfaction?
Absolutely. She had the right skin tone. The eyebrows were more curved. She was a little more all-American girl than what had originally sort of.
And I always love them too. I think they're very Barbie-like.
That when I think Barbie, that's sort of what I think of. So I love that. So.
Well,
Well,
let's move into the 60s.
We entered a new decade, and so that original concept sort of continued. This is a 1960 costume called Busy Gal, and this is Barbie being a fashion designer. She originally came with a little portfolio of sketches and this little red linen suit. I love this because Charlotte Johnson, Barbie's first fashion designer, I think that was a clever little nod to her own profession.
Herself.
Yep. So I love that costume. So moving on into the 60s, we discover that Barbie needs a friend. So they introduced Barbie's best friend, Midge, and here's Midge is wearing Busy Morning, and she was the ultimate companion.
And they were great marketers because by making her the same size, they could sell twice as many costumes.
Absolutely. And so, and as things continue to evolve, we're going to talk about this Barbie over on this side. This is the American Girl Barbie wearing the Golden Glamour costume. And this Barbie had bendable legs, another invention that was done by Jack Ryan that allowed the doll more playability, more posability, and just kind of making her more and more evolution.
And we've got a very Jacqueline Kennedy costume. Who designed this costume?
I'm not 100% sure who did that one. It was done in 1965. Some of the designers at the time were Carol Spencer, Eileen Zublin, and Dorothy Shue, and I think they had added a couple more at the time, so I'm not certain, but it's fabulous. The one thing that I will tell you is what is really fabulous about that costume is you can't see, but underneath that jacket is a sort of a turquoisey blue silk chiffon sheared bodice. It's a gorgeous,
yes.
a gorgeous little touch to that.
Okay.
So speaking of innovation, this is
Twist and Turn?
Twist and Turn Barbie from 1967, which is famous for a multitude of reasons. Once again, a Jack Ryan innovation allowed Barbie to twist at the waist. And it wasn't just, a straight line where she twisted, it was sort of at an angle, so it gave her sort of like an actual human twisting. She also had bendable legs, and for the first time, she had rooted eyelashes. And Charlotte Johnson, Barbie's fashion designer, came up with that concept and idea to create those rooted eyelashes. But this particular Barbie was part of a program that was the trade-in program, where you could take your old Barbie and $1.50 and go to the toy store and get this Barbie. And
oh boy.
well, everybody likes to think that those dolls get thrown away or trashed, but the concept with Mattel in doing that is that those dolls were donated to charity.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but I bought my Twist and Turn in the store brand new in 1967.
Oh my gosh.
I remember all the beautiful displays.
Oh.
And then shouldn't we bounce up to this girl here next?
Absolutely. Well, this is another really innovative doll. This is the Talking Barbie from 1968. Jack Ryan had created the concept of a talking doll with Chatty Cathy with a little record inside and a pull string. And they had worked and worked and worked to get that mechanism down to the size that would fit inside a Barbie torso. when they finally achieved that, they needed someone to do the voice of the talking Barbie. And Gwen Floria, that worked at Mattel in their sound lab, actually is the original voice for Barbie.
Oh, fun.
And she
and
has the same rooted lashes and mod face, which I love.
And I got that in the store too, New. They're very much, they always remind me now of the Valley of the Dolls. This
very, well, it's that very beautiful perfection. I love it. So this is the first black doll that was added to the line in 1967. It's the African-American twist and turn Francie doll. And Francie had been introduced in '66, and I think they were just sort of testing out, if they could get a skin tone that was correct and the hair style, hair texture, hair color. So this is the first black doll. This is Francie.
And this one is held up beautifully.
She's gorgeous.
I mean, they don't always hold up beautifully, but that's gorgeous.
Sometimes they fade, and sometimes the hair can kind of look like it went through the ringer.
We kind of bounced around, but we forgot about the career girls.
So down at this, and this is the swirl ponytail from '64, and she's wearing the American Airlines stewardess costume. We now call them flight attendants, but it used to be
they were stewardesses.
They were stewardesses, and when I always think of the word stewardess, I always think of that sort of like fabulous, sort of like tailored costume, and just that sort of Pan Am sort of look, that just very gracious and gorgeous. So it was definitely a career that a young lady could get into and see the world.
Well, I mean, at that time, a stewardess was like I mean, when they walked in a room, everybody looked at them.
Oh yeah.
They were really kind of celebrities.
And so I want to also point out in the middle, this is the Julia doll, and Julia was based on the television show Julia, which was portrayed by Diane Carroll. And she was one of the original television shows where an African American was portrayed as having a career and not as in some subservient role like a maid or something. So it was a very fabulous TV show for the time, and Diane Carroll was just absolutely gorgeous.
And so she was just an elegant lady.
She was immortalized in Barbie Doll in, I think, '68, '69, and they did a whole range of costumes just for her.
And it is unusual. Most actresses don't want to be a doll because it dates them.
Yes.
So they try to avoid that. So this was a big deal. And so who we're going to go look at next?
Okay, let's go into the '70s.
But what about Francie?
Well, Francie is always my favorite.
Okay.
So this is Francie from '66, bendable like Francie, wearing a costume called Iced Blue. And she also had rooted lashes, and she has a slightly different figure than Barbie. She has smaller breasts, and her feet are a little flatter. She really reflected that sort of Sally Field Gidget character.
Oh yeah, I never thought of that, but now that you say
it was that sort of concept. And what I will tell you is she represented a girl of like 15, 16 years old, and at the time, in the mid-'60s, there was a big difference between the life a 16-year-old girl was leading and what a 19-year-old girl would have been leading. Francie was going to dance parties and the soda shop and meeting up with friends, and at 18, 19, Barbie was, becoming a stewardess.
Yes.
She was leading a career, she was getting married, she was doing all of the things that a grown-up person would do. I always laugh when I see like the 17 magazines and going through the advertisements for hope chests and wedding gowns and that sort of thing, because, at 17, that's what you're dreaming of.
Yes. All right, so where are we going next?
So let's go into the 70s. And the 70s were really kind of a very evolutionary time. Barbie sees 2 new face sculpts, she gets some new friends, and things just really kind of get crazy. So what we'll do is we'll talk about Malibu Francie in the top left. So that's a very great selling doll. They did this doll in '71, and she kind of evolved, I think, for 3 years unchanged, and was Very, very popular doll. She utilizes the Stacy face sculpt, which was done by Joyce Christopher, who had been hired at Mattel in 1967. A very basic doll, but great play value with the little sunglasses and towels.
Bradley, is that the same sculpt as Stacy?
It is.
Oh, wow. Just look what a paint finish can change.
Yep. So one of my favorite sculpts. It was one of my childhood dolls. So the other thing that happened in the 70s was the 1976 Olympics. And we've got two gold medal dolls on our wall here. We've got the Olympic skier that we're looking at. And I remember the 1976 Olympics, so it was a very popular time. And if you want to pop over to this side,
it was very dramatic.
This was the Olympic swimmer. So you can see her little gold medal. And these were authorized by the U.S. Olympic Committee. And they rolled out like the year before, so there was a lot of planning and plotting to kind of get ready for this. And they were really great selling dolls, and it was like a fun concept that I think probably got a lot of young people interested in some of these sports. So this is Quick Curl Barbie, 1973, and once again, another Jack Ryan invention. The reason why she had quick curl hair, she has little metal filaments that are rooted with her regular hair. So she came with a magic curling wand, so her hair could be curled and it would hold.
No, I don't ever remember this one.
Yeah, she was a popular doll.
And what year did you say?
73.
Okay. I don't remember that. But I grew up in a small town, so maybe we never got that one.
You missed out.
I did.
So in the middle of the pink is Malibu Francie, Malibu Christie, that came out at the same time as Malibu Barbie, and she originally came in a red swimsuit, but she's wearing this fabulous costume called Scene Stealers, and I just kind of love like a pink sheer coat, because who doesn't need a pink sheer
This
coat?
is a rare doll, is it not?
She's not overly rare, but what I will tell you is the black dolls, for me, are hard to find, so she would definitely be a jewel in a collection. Now above her is the Twist and Turn Christie, and she's wearing lemon kick, and her hair was originally dark, but they oxidized or fade over time to this sort of like bright red henna color, which I think is really striking.
I think it is.
So she's a lovely, lovely doll. Now in the lower left-hand corner is an interesting doll, and this is Ellie. Now Ellie was only available in the Japanese market, and she has the same body as a living Barbie, but the head is a little bigger, the eyes are a little bigger, and they were trying to create a doll that appealed to the Japanese children's aesthetic, and she was done in the early 70s in Japan, so she's a very rare doll.
So it's her face is slightly anime, isn't it?
Well, and that's an aesthetic that appeals to Japanese children. They're starting in the 50s, there was a whole movement of these girl manga comics, which were stories and love stories that were written in sort of comic book form. They were very popular with girls, and they were illustrated with very large eyes and very expressive. And so the challenge became to translate that into doll form. So it's kind of a fun.
So we're going to leave the 70s.
Well, we've got to talk about Superstar Barbie.
Superstar. Oh no, we can't.
So in 77, Barbie got a new face sculpt that was done by Joyce Clark, and has a smiling face with showing teeth and fabulous sort of sun-streaked blonde hair. She had rhinestone jewelry. Barbie's arms were bent for the first time, and they were molded that way. And she came in this gorgeous pink satin dress with this fabulous boa that was just sort of amazing.
Very 1970s.
Oh, it's just, and that's at the time of Studio 54 and disco, and remember all of those television variety shows where they had all those elaborate costumes? It was just really, really
and
amazing.
I've never seen this piece before. that Barbie was patriotic?
Barbie was patriotic. So in 1976, when the U.S. celebrated the bicentennial, that was a huge thing. And so Mattel in 75 had hired a designer named Janet Goldblatt. And this was the first garment that she designed that was accepted for the line. And it was very bicentennial inspired and was a Best Buy fashion that was sold separately for Barbie and was very popular.
Fun. That's something to look out for, because obviously it wouldn't have been made beyond the bicentennial.
Right. It's from 76 only. So, the 1980s was sort of a pinnacle decade for Barbie for a lot of reasons. We met a lot of new dolls and a lot of new friends, and so we're going to kind of cover some of this history on this wall. The first thing I'm going to start off with is in 1980, we got Golden Dream Barbie. And Golden Dream Barbie was designed by Kitty Black Perkins, and she had this mix and match sort of gold costume. And Kitty Black Perkins was the first African American designer at Mattel, and she designed these dolls with such play value that the costumes could sort of evolve. She's wearing like a gold swimsuit with gold pants and like a gold cover up, and everything could kind of be mix and match and change. So it was a lot of play value mixed into this doll. So I love that. But speaking of Kitty Black Perkins, I want to turn your attention to this doll. Now this is the first black Barbie. Now you're like, well, Bradley, we've looked at other black dolls, but this was the first doll that carried the name Barbie, and it was designed by Kitty, and it's
a beautiful doll.
Gorgeous, gorgeous doll. It utilizes this Steffi face mold and has this great little short curly afro and fabulous jewelry, and the little skirt snaps off, so he has like a little disco play suit. She's just a lot of fun and gorgeous doll, and she's one of my favorites.
What year did she come out?
1980.
Okay. It's a little bit before Dynasty, but it has very much a Dynasty look.
That was coming into fashion.
That's right, yes.
So one of the next dolls I'm going to point out is from 1984, is the Day to Night Barbie. Now, women were becoming very career-oriented, and so we all knew about power suits and business suits, and so they decided to give Barbie this sort of glamorous sort of career woman work with like a pink suit and hat and spectator pumps and a briefcase.
And is that a calculator in her hand?
It is. Do you remember a calculator?
Oh, yes. Yes, I just think that's hysterical.
Well, the thing about this doll is you snap off the jacket, the skirt reverses, and underneath you have
this.
So Day to Night.
Oh,
so
my
she's ready
goodness.
to go meet us for cocktails in the lounge.
That in the 80s was very important.
Absolutely. So
I was there.
So it was a transformative look, and it was really, really fabulous. Once again, designed by Kitty Black Perkins.
Well, she was a great designer.
So a lot of the iconic dolls from the 80s were Kitty's creations. So this is Peaches and Cream Barbie, and people from this generation love this doll because it was just so beautiful.
And when you think of Barbie, you think of opulent and style and color and all of that.
Oh yeah, it's just so. I'm going to point out this doll, and this doll was created by Maba in Japan, and Maba stood for Mattel Bandai, and this is the Barbie that was produced for the Japanese market in the 80s. It had started with a company called Takara, who had been manufacturing the most popular fashion doll in Japan, Lika-chan, and Mattel worked with them until they didn't, and then they licensed and created this company. But the dolls are a little more demure. They have a smaller bust and just a little bit different, and I think it's kind of neat to see what
other countries, cultures
are getting. I think that's really fabulous. So, Michael, I'm going to get you to drop down to the bottom here, and we're going to look at the 1988 holiday Barbie. Now, this is the doll that truly launched 1 million collectors.
Oh, I think so.
This came out in time for the holidays that year, and sold out quickly. At the time, it carried like a $25 retail price tag and was in a giant box. And I think when they created this doll, they just didn't really know if the consumers would pay that price for that doll. And
do you think it was because of the dress or the hair?
yes.
Okay. It's the dress and the hair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So I mean, it really was a spectacular doll, and it created a series that has lasted ever since.
Oh yes, people love these. And what I think is so fascinating is we're in a doll club, and we have a lot of youngsters that are in the doll club, and to them, an old Barbie is from the 80s, which just, you know, kills me,
I know.
but I'm thrilled.
My heart dies a little bit
Yeah.
with that, and I'm gonna touch on these last couple too.
Well, I love this one.
This is the Feeling Groovy Barbie, and at the time there was a Barbie collector named Billy Boy who was a jewelry designer and artist and did lots of things, and he possessed one of the largest collections of Barbie. And
until you.
well, you know, I'm sure he has more than me, but the luxury of his connections was he knew all of the Parisian designers and a lot of the British designers. So he worked with them and had all of these designers create miniature garments for Barbie, and they did a special touring display. And he had like Yves Saint Laurent and all of these, Emilio Pucci, do all of these fabulous costumes for Barbie, and it toured. So they commemorated all of that with this fabulous doll, which I love. Pale skin, black hair, red lip.
She's very chic.
Gorgeous.
Totally chic.
Now at the bottom we've got Barbie wearing one of the Oscar de la Renta fashions that was created in the early 80s. And this, to me, Michael, is very Dynasty.
Oh, very. Mm-hmm. But so is this.
Oh, very much. And those shoulder pads, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, yeah. But this is very, very Dynasty.
I love that fabric. So let's start here in the 90s, and we'll zoom in on this fabulous doll in the very center. Michael, that is the best-selling doll, Barbie doll of all time.
Really?
Yes. It was designed by Carol Spencer, and it's totally hair Barbie. And as you can tell, the feature of that doll was her hair. Little girls love hair play.
And so do little boys.
Well, that is true, because I love that doll, and I love that little Pucci style mini dress. Very, very popular selling doll that was available in brunette as well. And they did an African American version, and it's pretty fabulous. But the 90s were really kind of an interesting time, not only for Barbie, but also in fashion. Designers were really popular, and designer labels were really popular, and Barbie reflected a lot of that. So at the time, Mattel started working with a lot of designers for exclusive Barbies. Nicole Miller did an exclusive Barbie print.
That's
And
fabulous.
this is Nicole Miller's Barbie coat.
Fabulous.
And then to the right is Benetton Christie. Do you remember the Benetton stores?
Oh, sure.
So I had lots of sweaters from Benetton, and but they did a whole collection of costumes and dress dolls for.
These have to be hard to find.
They don't turn up that frequently, and they're very popular with collectors. And as you were saying, like, you know, people thinking Barbie from the 80s is really old, and it kind of is. You know, it's hard for me to wrap my head around that, but yes. This new generation of collector loves the dolls from the 80s and the 90s, and the 90s are really popular, so Benetton is really popular. So
Well, I love their use of texture and color and layer.
yeah, it's just great. So, and the 90s are when Barbie collecting really kind of hit a pinnacle. Barbie celebrated her 35th anniversary, and so everything.
Is this Barbie here at 35?
This is Barbie at 35.
She's looking pretty
This
good.
is Earring Magic Barbie, and she's got like this fabulous sort of Versace looking mini dress with crazy earrings that you could change the jewels on. And then also in the 90s, Barbie's little sister Skipper got
Well,
a
she was away for a while, wasn't she?
She always kind of was there, but they continued to evolve her, kind of trying to find her footing. And so they kind of made her like a young teenager. She kind of became like the modern day Francie. So this is teen Skipper. And with everything getting so popular with collectors and kids, there were so many. In the 90s, they did Barbie cereal, they did Barbie Jello, they did Barbie everything. And here is the Kool-Aid Wacky Warehouse Barbie, and you saved all of the points from your Kool-Aid container and sent away for it, and you got Kool-Aid Barbie.
Well, that's a pretty wonderful giveaway.
Yeah, I kind of think that's pretty fabulous.
And I think in the 90s, or was it in the 80s, we start to have the collector type dolls.
Still late 80s, and I would say the Holiday Barbie was one of those first things, but then in the 90s, once they figured out that we would pay big bucks for Barbie, it was off and running.
Okay.
So now we're entering a new decade. This is the 2000s. Barbie continues to evolve, Barbie continues to change. In the late 90s, there had been such an outcry over Barbie's body. They literally redesigned her body to have wider hips and smaller breasts. So that went into play at this time. And some of the earliest dolls to reflect this were, it started becoming a very commonplace thing to use that body in the 2000s. And there's a lot of names for that. They call it the new body, they call it the belly button body. There's a lot of different things. But this is a prototype, actually, of, I believe, one of the Fashion Fever dolls. So she's got like a whole new sort of look and body, but that was never produced for the market. They started adding more articulation, and what's really interesting is the early dolls, they didn't want any visible articulation. They tried to make it as hidden as possible, and now I think kids are far more accepting of like this visible articulation. And in this time period, they started doing the Barbie movies. And that generation, like the generation of my nieces, loved like Barbie as the Nutcracker and the Prince and the Pauper. And it would be like a movie that they would produce and sell like the DVD or the VHS. And then they would do a whole collection of dolls that supported that. It was pretty brilliant. And that generation loves that. Like my nieces are crazy for those dolls now. As adults, they're still crazy for them. But they did a lot of celebrity dolls. We've got the Destiny's Child, including Beyonce here. And though it's not the first time, we do have Barbie for president in 2004.
Wouldn't it be great if Barbie were the president?
I would love that so much. I would vote for Barbie. But the styling was very reflective of the times. I mean, you can just when you're going through a decade and you're seeing all of this stuff, you don't necessarily think about how fashion is changing. It seems very stagnant. But then when you're 20 years ahead and you look back and you're like, oh my God, were we really wearing that? So,
yes, we were.
Yes, we were. Michael, it's hard to believe that these dolls, 2010 was 15 years ago, and now that's given me a little pause. I may have to lay down after this. But this generation was really, in 2009, Barbie had celebrated its 50th anniversary, and so everything after that just continues to be a constant evolution and changing. And so we go from having the Fashion Fever dolls to having the Fashionista dolls. We get Barbie Life in the Dream House, which was a series that was done on YouTube, and we get some celebrity dolls, or sheroes as Mattel likes to refer to them, and Misty Copeland, the African-American prima ballerina, is featured here at the top, which I think is a gorgeous doll, and she's a gorgeous person. But Mattel also, they do a lot with not-for-profits, charities. They support hospitals. They do a lot of outreach, and one of the things that they did was they created a friend for Barbie named Ella, and Ella has no hair, and she comes with wigs, and they often would give this to little girls or boys that were going through chemotherapy and were losing their hair, and it just kind of proves that you don't have to have hair to be beautiful.
No. Bradley, what I'm noticing is that the face painting is getting very sophisticated by now. They have come a long way.
Technology, they definitely evolve, and it's interesting that the technology can evolve and the doll can be so much more sophisticated and different, yet the price pretty much is the same, because you can still go to the store and for about $8 get a Barbie doll. So
isn't that fantastic?
So that's pretty fun.
This one is very interesting here.
As I was saying, The Life in the Dream House was a YouTube television series featuring Barbie and her friends, and this was Barbie's friend from Life in the Dream House, Raquel, and I think Raquel was sort of like that frenemy that was a little bit snarky, so she has that little smirk on her face.
Oh, well, we all need a Raquel in our life.
I've got plenty.
You just never know what they're going to say.
That's true. This is recent Barbie, and probably the most phenomenal thing that happened in 2023 was the Barbie movie.
Fabulous Barbie movie.
Love the movie. And it was really a phenomenon that lasted for quite a while, and
well, when are they going to make the sequel?
Oh, I hope soon. We could use that. So, but we've got two of the movie dolls, the Barbie and the Ken, and but we also show in this thing just that Barbie represents us all, and you can always find a Barbie that represents us. And we have Barbie has a prosthetic leg, which was...
Well, my Barbie needed to have a prosthetic leg. My brothers ripped her leg off and threw it in the river.
They're fired.
Yeah.
They're fired. Well,
we don't speak to them.
Oh, and see, I have one myself I don't speak to. But when I was growing up, my mom had a condition called vitiligo. And as a kid, my mom had very splotchy skin that was just like, and she was losing the pigment or the melanin in her skin. And I, as a child, did not understand that. My mom was Caucasian, so it was not as apparent as someone would be if they were African American or had dark skin tone. And in trying to represent us all, Mattel did a doll that has vitiligo, and I think she's phenomenal. And I went right out and bought that because, you know, had I had access to that as a kid, I probably would.
You'd have more understanding.
More understanding. So I just think that's really great. And so the Dia de los Muertos Barbie, which is a huge celebration in Mexico, and
it's really beautifully done.
So fabulously done. I believe these are done by Javier Meeb, who's a designer at Mattel. The design team with him and Bill Greening and Carla Nuera, they've all done some incredible dolls, and Linda Carl, that have been so phenomenal. And so for us, like, these designers are like superstars, you know. If you work
yes.
with them, they're superstars.
So tell me, the Barbie movie dolls, did those just fly off the shelves?
Oh, they flew off the shelves. Everybody was crazy for them. I think they remade them and remade them and remade them. So I love them because it's really kind of cool. It was a new face sculpt. It was just, to me, it was just amazing. So to see it on the big screen and then get the dolls was great. So Michael, I had mentioned early in our tour of the dolls on the timeline, Charlotte Johnson, and this is a little bit of information about Charlotte. Charlotte was Barbie's first fashion designer, and she would travel to Japan to help set up the design and production for the original Barbie, and then she would act as the manager of that department for about 20 years, and she was featured in this is a Mattel in-house newsletter. This is an early photograph of her, which I think is great. They mention her by name as Barbie's designer in the original Barbie fan club newsletters, which I think was kind of cool that Miss Charlotte is very busy whipping up some new designs for Barbie for 1961. She also held the patent for the rooted eyelash method for Barbie.
Well, Bradley, I want to compliment you because you are the person that has done really all of the main research on early Barbie from then to now. Well, I know other people have, but you've dug in deep.
A lot of research, but I always want to know a backstory. I always want to know the history. And what I would say is there's a lot of documentation, and there are still a few people breathing that knew Charlotte, that met her. And so I've tried to interview and talk to these people and get these stories. And what I always say is I can do this now because 1959 was 66 years ago, but that's not that long ago. doing the research now for like 1866 with Hooray, I just think about what had someone then been documenting all of that, the amazing body of work that we would have had to document these early dolls. But some of that just didn't seem important. It's just been very important to me, and I love my research and I love studying this.
Well, we appreciate it.
So this is our tribute to Kitty by Perkins. She was a native South Carolinian that showed up in the 1970s to design for Barbie, and she really created some of the most iconic sort of looks for Barbie, Golden Dream, Pink and Pretty, Day to Night. She did so many things, and she is one of the most lovely people I've ever had the pleasure. She's a beautiful woman. She's gorgeous. She is a Barbie. And this is the first Black Barbie. There's a documentary that was released on Netflix recently about the creation of this, which is really fascinating, that if the viewers have not seen, they might want to check it out.
I haven't seen it, so I'm going to have to watch it.
Check this out. So these Barbies were all loaned to us, and they are from a special exhibit that was done in the early 80s when Mattel would work with department stores and special doll shops and stuff like that, and they would have an in-person live fashion show. So all of these Barbies that we're seeing here, we also have a life-size version of their costumes hanging in our Barbie Dream Closet in this exhibit.
I see. Wonderful.
So these are the life-size versions that were worn by models in the 1980s, and a person local here in Norfolk had worked for Mattel and had kept these in storage and loaned them to us. So to me, it's great to see like a Barbie costume kind of come to life in full scale. And we've got a whole closet of fabulous Barbie and Ken costumes that are pretty amazing. The Tracy wedding gown. We've got Angel Face Barbie, and then this fabulous Best Buy sort of like jumpsuit with the Barbie letter on it. So I love all of these. And the one thing I like to also point out is during this whole evolution and history is not only were they creating Barbies, they were creating Barbie collectors. And the Barbie collectors really kind of like came together and sort of organized in the 70s and 80s, and in 1980 they had their first Barbie convention. But everyone was so passionate that it spawned like a whole world of stuff. And this is a jacket that was created by Dick Tossin, who was an artist, and he created this jacket for a Barbie collector. So to me, it's kind of like coming full circle of, you know, Barbie was created, and that created like a whole collector community.
And she was barely even old then.
I know, it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny, but I just love
She was in her prime.
My friend Pam loaned this. This had been her mom's, and she had worn it to Barbie conventions. So
well,
I just think it's really
wonderful.
Cool.
It's wonderful.
Now, you were talking about the Barbie movie, and the one thing we learned in the Barbie movie that Ken's job was beach.
Beach. That's what he did. He did beach.
At the beach, and we've got some great Ken dolls. I'm just going to point out one, and it's not even Ken, it's Alan, who was kind of the hero of the movie.
Yes.
But this particular Alan is from my collection. And this Alan came in the Richard Haffey archive. Richard Haffey had been an art director at Mattel from the late 50s to the 1990s. And many times they would create something, or they would do a commercial, or they would film Barbie, or they would photograph Barbie. And Michael, do you know what they did with those dolls after they filmed them or photographed them?
Yeah.
They threw them away.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when they threw them away, they would get rescued. So Richard Haffey rescued this Alan from a commercial and took it home, and his daughter played with it, and it was part of her collection that I acquired. He's a little worn and a little bit, but he was completely hand-painted. His plastic is very different than the production Alans. He's just really different.
Well, Bradley, I don't know if you know this or I've ever told you this, but my uncle was in charge of security for Mattel, worldwide security.
Really?
And he found that after the season, the designers were just throwing the designs into the trash. And he suggested maybe they should save it to open a museum.
Oh.
And he had to deal with leaking roofs and all kinds of things.
Oh, wow.
But he, who's not a doll person, said, maybe you should
Save
save
this,
these
preserve
things.
this. So-
But you know, I think they're like the fashion houses. They're moving forward to the next thing.
That's the thing. They're always looking forward. They're never looking back. And sometimes looking back is very important. But
I know.
we have an original Ken, and then Chrissy's boyfriend and Ken's friend Brad. So
Brad is amazing sculpt.
done by Joyce Christopher. When she was hired in '67, that was her job, to create new friends and new sculpts for Barbie.
Fabulous. And then of course Ken changes.
Superstar Ken. We got a new. He looks very Robert Redford to me.
Yeah, I think so too.
And then he gets dark hair.
And a little more Donny Osmond there.
A little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And then a new sculpt. This is Earring Magic Ken that was companion to the.
And again, a fantastic sculpt.
Very, very fantastic. And then also kind of a controversial Ken. At the time, mesh shirts and purple pleather vests were probably all the rage.
Yeah, now it's no big deal. And then is this our latest contemporary?
This is a very contemporary Ken with that sort of like hairstyle that all the young kids are wearing.
And rooted hair.
Yes.
It's the first one
Yes.
we've seen with that.
Well, the first Ken with rooted hair is '73. They did mod hair Ken, but he pops up with rooted hair every once in a while.
So Ken does beach.
Ken does beach. So these are some slightly more contemporary Barbies, starting with the early 2000s and into more modern. We also have Blaine, who was Ken's sort of rival, because Barbie and Ken broke up for a while. I don't know if you know that.
No one told me.
Yeah, and she dated Blaine, who was her
I
Australian
did not know.
boyfriend.
I did not know this.
So,
I'm devastated.
so very much, things kind of evolve. But, the Barbie catamaran, because Barbie is a California girl, so a lot of the activities that they were creating were things that these designers were seeing on a regular basis. Down at Malibu or in Santa Monica or San Diego,
Mm-hmm.
they were seeing all of this, and this was happening. So for a long time, through like the 80s and into the early 90s, most Barbies had blonde hair. There was not a whole lot of hair variation, but then starting late 90s, you get into they're creating different hair colors, textures, and stuff, and then in the 2000s, and like with 2016, different skin tones, multiple colors of hair, even with some fantasy colors of blue and pink. So Barbie continues to evolve and to appeal to kids around the world. So, Michael, I'm sure you have heard of this designer, Bob Mackie.
I've ran into him a time or two.
Well, Bob Mackie designed for Cher, Carol Burnett, Mitzi Gaynor. I mean, all of the 70s and 80s, everybody wore Bob Mackie.
I don't like to use the word icon. I think it's overused, but Bob Mackie is an icon.
Absolutely.
Who dressed icons.
Absolutely. Well, and one of the icons he dressed is iconic,
Barbie.
So we've got two of his designs here. We've got Madame to Barbie in sort of Marie Antoinette style gown of glitter and sequins and beads, and an amazing
and perfect.
presentation.
Just perfection.
Absolutely. And then on the right we have Goddess of the Sun. She has a companion that's Goddess of the Moon, but she's got her rays of sun and gold sequins and beads, and she's just really an amazing, amazing doll.
And when they produced these, do you remember the retail price for these items?
They were expensive. They were between like $100 and $135, which is expensive for a Barbie doll. But now when I look back at like the amount of work that went into them,
I don't think it could be produced again.
Oh, I don't think so either. I mean, this is just, it's like Barbie couture.
No, these are fantastic.
And the other thing is these have a new sort of face sculpt that was inspired by Bob Mackie, because he told the people at Mattel that Barbie always has this like little granny showing her teeth. He would like something a little more sophisticated. So Joyce Christopher sculpted this new sculpt that has a closed mouth and a slightly more serene sort of look. And collectors refer to that as the Mackey face.
I mean, they're beautiful from the back, Bradley.
So much detail.
And these are not made to have the clothes removed. These
Right.
are these are costume dolls. Mm-hmm.
So Michael, when we were planning this exhibit, the Barry Art Museum put out a call to the faculty and students of Old Dominion University, because we're on their campus, and said, do you want to include any of your Barbies or dolls in our exhibit? So this is Barbie on campus, and these are all on loan from Barbie fans and people that grew up with Barbie here on Old Dominion University campus. And it's actually really a great sort of representation of Barbie. I mean, it's really funny. Here's Jello Barbie. I mean, how funny is that?
I who knew?
And Working Woman Barbie, which is
I really talk.
it's sort of like an updated version of the Day to Night Barbie, because you can see her costume transforms into this sort of evening thing.
And what I think is great is she's not stressed out, even though she has all
very
those.
happy. She looks very happy. Now, did you know that Barbie has her own Pantone color?
Oh yeah.
So Pantone 219C is Barbie pink, and so here she is in the Pantone ship.
Oh, fabulous.
So, and Bob Mackie dresses all the glittery movie stars, but if you're getting married, the only person to go see is Vera
Wang. Mm-hmm,
So
of course.
this is Barbie and Vera Wang, Wedding Couture, and this is another fabulous costume.
And then we have a Stevie Nicks Barbie.
Yes, it was designed, I believe, by Bill Greening, and once again, sort of a fabulous person. So.
And this is something
Mattel always tries to inspire many things, and they're trying to recycle packaging, recycle plastics, organic packaging, and this is the Barbie Eco Leadership Team.
Fabulous.
And, there are 4 dolls made from recycled plastic, which is kind of cool.
And this is just kind of a random group of things that came in your door.
Absolutely.
But it all together, it tells a story.
I always like to point this out because, Barbie represents us all. And this is the Barbie that she has Down syndrome. And so they worked with a team to create this sort of, factual sort of representation of a person. I just love the doll. And I have 2 friends that have children with Down syndrome. And once again, representation is important. And I just think everybody can find a doll that represents them. And I love that.
That's fantastic.
So Michael, many times during our tour, I have mentioned the name Jack Ryan. And Jack Ryan is one of the people in the history of Barbie, along with Ruth Handler, that without that person, I'm not sure we would have the Barbie that we know. He was an inventor. He was just sort of the resident genius. He engineered, he figured out a lot of things, and he is very instrumental in getting the Barbie production off the ground originally. His name is on the original patent for the Barbie, along with the talking Barbie, the twist and turn Barbie, the bendable leg Barbie. He held the patent on all of those. And he went to work at Mattel in 1955, and he had worked for Raytheon in Massachusetts, developing the Sparrow and Hawk low altitude missiles. And we've got his picture of his badge there. And I like to point out with the badge, this is Maddie Mattel and Sister Belle, which was the Mattel sort of trademark, little logo people. But the badge is yellow, but this red stripe meant that he could go anywhere.
Mattel toy maker.
And it was him that kind of implemented that security, that probably worked with your
uncle
to make sure that industrial espionage was a real thing.
A real thing.
So, and this is the patent for Barbie. Now, the year that Barbie came out, they were premiering a new thing called the H-2O missile, which was also a Ryan invention. And this is where they were banking everything, because everything was about air and space and going to the moon and that sort of thing. So this was going to be the big push. So what I'm going to ask you this question.
No, I've never seen it.
You've never heard of that, but ironically, you yourself have a million Barbies. And here's the patent drawing for the talking mechanism that's inside the talking Barbie. But he's the one that found the company in Japan that set up the production for Barbie. He spent many weeks there getting that done. And Ruth Handler gets a lot of credit, and sometimes deserved credit, for Barbie. It was her watching her daughter play with paper dolls that came up with this sort of concept of a three-dimensional paper doll. But as I always say, it's kind of like making a baby. You got to have two people to make that baby. So I always say Ruth Handler can be Barbie's mom, but Jack Ryan has to be Barbie's dad, because his brain and innovation took that to the next level and got that actually figured out and produced. So I always like to give him a shout out, because he was.
Fathers are important.
They are important, very important.
Bradley, thank you so much for sharing this extraordinary exhibit on Barbie out of the box.
Well, it was a pleasure having Michael. Thanks for coming to the Barry Art Museum in Norfolk and seeing the wonderful exhibit that we've created.
Well, it's always fun to play with you, Barbie's best friend.
Well, thank you.
And we'll see you next time.
I can't wait.
All right. Bye-bye, doll friends.
Bye.
Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button.